All right. Welcome back to another recording of the Pencil Leadership Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. And today we got a really special guest. He's going to be talking about digital leadership, growing your business digitally by just how you position yourself as an authority online, as well as knowing yourself a little bit better and being able to grow into the person that you're meant to become. He is a British-born, Chinese-inspired entrepreneurial solution provider, and he specializes in high-level inner performance and leadership, and a consultant for digital marketing strategies, system processes, and business growth. So he brings a lot of value to the show today. You guys are going to get a lot out of it. If you're watching live and you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, in the comments down there. If I see it pop up, I'll try to implement it into the show. But yeah, you guys are in for a really, really good treat today because we're going to be digging into this digital leadership, growing your business digitally with Jono Poon. So we're going to bring Jono on and welcome Jono to the show.
Hey, Chris. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I would love for you, if you would, share just kind of a little bit about your journey and what's brought you into just being the expert on digital leadership and all that, man.
Well, firstly, how I got into the whole entrepreneurship space. Prior to that, I worked 9 to 5, as most people. Climbed up the whole. The thing that worked for me was I worked with 2 mentors who was in the personal development space. They were very heavy on the whole Tony Robbins, T.R. Vecca, all of those kind of mentors. They worked with those guys for a few years, and they adapted or implemented strategies and events, styles, how they run Tony Robbins events, and the whole hype, high fives and hugs and whole high energy performance in events. So I was brought in to do the digital marketing side, all the YouTube videos when YouTube was just about getting started, actually, back then.
Wow.
And so the whole systems and automations with Infusionsoft before it became the beast it is today. It was like early baby stages with them, but they were still a great platform to use. And I had learned all about digital marketing, the systems, the processes, the automations, follow-ups, upsells, tagging, all sorts of digital marketing stuff that they learned from their mentors and passed down the skill and experience to me.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I ran the whole team, and we outsourced the team. I was managing the outsourced team. Fresh graduate, right? I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, this was just fun for me. It was all systems and tech. I'm a geek myself, so I was in heaven, really. And what the fun side was the events, the live events, and just seeing people having those kind of transformations from where they were kind of like made me kind of still understand. We're like, what's all these high five clappy people doing? Like, does it actually bring you results? So I kind of worked there for about 2 or 3 years, developed my skill set, and I was like, what else is out in the world? So then I worked in SMEs, bigger corporations, and then large corporate internationals. So I found myself climbing that career ladder, or the corporate ladder, you say, to the point where I was physically and mentally burnt out because I was just completely in it. The salary was great, but after doing it for about 7, 8 years, it was just like, is this something that I want to keep going in my life?
Right.
And I was asking myself deep questions when I was physically and mentally burnt out, because it felt like I was just in my deathbed. I was just laying in my deathbed and be like, am I doing this for the next 10, 15 years? 2 or 3 years, maybe that's okay. But 10, 15, you hear like corporate guys, right? They're like, oh, I've been in business for 20 years or in the company for 30, 40 years. It's
right.
Like, really?
Yeah. Is that where I want to end up?
Yeah, it's like, I wouldn't mind it, but there was the lifestyle I was leading to.
Okay.
I was working about 15 to 16, 18 hour days. So even I had, nice salary, nice money coming in and all that, I didn't have the life.
Yeah.
I didn't have the life to live it. I wasn't able to spend time with my fiance. I wasn't able to spend time with my friends. So let alone family time.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big eye opener, I think, and some people they have that and they just kind of say, well, it's just what it is, and that's the sad thing.
Yeah, and so for when I got to that stage was asking myself deep questions and being really honest with myself. I was really reflecting and saying, is this where I want to be? Is this all there is to climbing a corporate ladder?
Right.
I wasn't having fun. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't happy. And when those things just end up too many times to be a no, then it's just like that's a red flag. And I ended up in a bit of, I would say, self-diagnosed depression. I was just unhappy, basically.
Yeah.
But I did have like those kind of dark thoughts where you kind of have like suicidal thoughts. It's like, if I ended it now, like, would it matter? Like, what would I leave behind, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was grim, but it was questions I needed to ask myself to have that deep conversations with myself, and just really be honest, like really grilling, and be like, is this where you want to be? Are you going to be happy with it? And if you left now, what would you leave behind? And my parents are still here, so I'm thankful for that and blessed for that. So I was like, well, if I left my parents wouldn't have someone to look after them because I'm the only child, which kind of makes it more difficult for having the excuse to just escape, right?
Right.
I would rather not do that. So I was like, nope, need to be here for my parents. I need to show up to be here, for my parents. I need to show up for my clients. I need to show up for my fiance. But it was just something that I just kept asking myself deep inside, there must be more to offer. And so I kept digging deep. I reached out to one of my best friends / my business partner. And he asked me, if you was to live your life, we've been doing Tony Robbins' work and personal development for years now, you should know this stuff. And then it was like, yeah, I do know the answers. I just never asked myself those answers.
Right.
I never implemented those questions into my life. I never implemented the answers into my life. So it was just like, okay, so if you was to quit your job tomorrow, and what would you do? I'd be like, well, I want to inspire, influence, and impact the next generation of leaders, the next generation of young teenagers, the kids, whoever I work with, clients, and become the next digital leaders.
That's awesome. And that's what you did, right?
And that's what I'm doing. And it's been a great journey. It's been fun. It's been scary at times, not going to lie, right?
Right.
As with anything.
Yep. For sure.
You do things that's fun, exciting, but you love it. And that doesn't feel like it's a challenge. Doesn't feel like it's a chore.
Right.
And, when challenges come around, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll think of a solution for that.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like a challenge. It just feels like, okay, that's just something that pops up as part of the process.
That's awesome. Well, that's really neat. I like the story, and just thank you for being transparent and open about that. And so now, helping the next generation of leaders just kind of build that digital. I mean, because that's what it is now. Is everything's digital. The digital footprint. I mean, and we're experienced right now. Everything needs to be online for who knows what in the future. And so, so I guess just to dive in, what is your kind of positioning on like the digital leadership? Where do you kind of begin with all that?
For when I put work with my clients, I would say, what do you stand for? What I mean by what do you stand for is, what are your values?
Yep.
And most people don't know what their values are, which is why most people end up being lost or stuck in their lives.
Yep.
That was the same for me. That was the same process I went through, which is why we designed Find Your Journey program, and the framework was the 5 stages of life, and the 5 stages of life's journey. Where do you climb through? Each step or each block has its own obstacles and challenges, but each have their own solution and how you could overcome it. And so knowing what you stand for, knowing your values.
Yeah.
These are the huge ones. And for me, it's all about like growth is my number one. If I'm not growing, I'm dying. Literally, that's how I
No,
feel.
I think
And I'm
that's
sure most people who's in the personal development space or have done some form of personal development would feel the same way. Like if I'm not growing, I'm not learning, I'm not challenging myself daily basis, then it feels like something feels a bit off.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if we're stagnant, I mean, you think about water that's stagnant, and you don't want to mess with that. It can, and nothing good comes from it really. And so, yeah, being able to keep growing, I think daily. I tell people like just 1% better every day. Just try to be 1% better, at least.
Which is why we create those type of adversities and developing the mental resilience, like working out, for instance. Why do most successful or billionaires, work out? It's because it's creating mental resilience. It's also giving themselves the mind, body, and spirit alignment. It's all about looking after you and taking care of yourself first.
Right. Yeah.
And those are all important aspects of not just being a leader, but a leader of your own life.
Yes.
Like really taking care of yourself, because the equation that I normally put in is if you used to put yourself in an equation, yourself, then the closest people around you, so your parents, your family, your friends, and then put down if they are the ones that rely on you, what happens if you just take them away? If you take out yourself out of the equation, what are they left with? And if they rely on you and you don't show up and you don't, step up even for them, what happens to them? What's the consequences that happen to them?
Yeah.
For instance, I know for a fact that if I'm not around, my parents would not have someone to help them do translations with the English language. Is not their strength. Someone to help them with their finance, someone to help them with the career jobs that they have. And, they rely a lot on me, then there's a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
But that's the form of responsibility that we take in our lives. It's, in the time being that they are alive, I would enjoy being present with them and do what I can for them because they have done so much for me. And we kind of forget how much our parents have done for us with what they've struggled through and how the many adversities that they have to overcome to bring us up, right? And for that, I'm grateful. But now it's the time for me to help and be there for them. Yeah.
And I think that's huge. And I think that just, going back to the values with that is like, because we all have influence. I mean, some people don't, I'm not a leader. But no matter where you're at, I mean, there's someone that looked up to you or is listening to what you're saying or watching what you're doing. So it doesn't matter what level or stage you're at in life, like you have influence. Now, like Patrick Lencioni says, like everyone has influence, but not everybody should because they don't know, like, and they abuse it or they're not the best influence. And so, but I think, what do you stand for? I think that first part and realizing there's people that do rely on us in different senses of that word. And so with that, so like building that online. So how do we go about building this online around our values? So we see what we stand for, what our values are, then how can we start building that leadership or growing into that leadership
growing
online?
Into that leadership would be down to the content that you put out in the world.
Okay.
Now, this is not your political posts or what you believe in, but how you can actually help and transform people's lives with what you've got to offer. Now, many people are in different areas of their lives, right? So some people could be in beauty, they do skin and beauty transformations. There's people who do leadership like yourselves, who do leadership transformations, who's there to inspire, to help people to step up, to, what kind of education can you help others?
Right.
To be a great leader, you need to speak in public. You need to be able to handle yourself on radio, on podcasts like this, on interviews. These are skills, right? These are not, most people would say, how hard is it to speak on the radio or on a podcast?
Right.
It's not it's not hard. But if you're someone who's introverted, shy, and quiet like myself, I had to train for this.
Right. Yeah. Because with those skills, I mean, we're not the best. I'm not the best at everything. There are things that I've had to practice and work on and try to improve on. And I still am trying to improve on certain things. So I think that's a really important thing to take away from that is like the skills, if they're not your strength, can be worked on so you can improve. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And building the courage to be on Facebook Lives or doing live videos. That's another skill because you're thinking on your feet.
Yep.
You don't know if the content you're saying is going to be right. If you're overcoming a lot of those obstacles as well. For someone like myself who have issues and low confidence, I had to build up the courage, build up the strengths, build up the resilience to get over those fears of being judged.
Okay.
And that was one of the hugest obstacles that I had to overcome. And what helped was I did Toastmasters in public speaking.
Yeah.
And that's how I helped grow myself into a speaker, to do podcasting, to do live shows. It's because I grew my confidence by stepping out my comfort zone.
That's awesome.
And just building that resilience and breaking out the fear.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, and that's funny you say that about the video and live things, like, yeah, so you're introverted, so you got to work on just building that confidence. So like I'm extroverted, but still for some reason, when I started doing video and everything, like I guess it goes to my personality and my traits of being, if you know the Enneagram, so I'm a 1. And so me worrying about messing up or not being right or being seen as wrong or whatnot, really kind of that's what my struggle was. So I had to work on like, hey, you're adding value. Someone out there, if you don't put that video out or if you don't speak into that video or do a live, like someone is missing what you have to say. It doesn't matter if someone else thinks you're wrong or something like that. Like that one person you could help, like that's why you have to do it. And so like it was a struggle for me. I'm like, oh, like because of my personality. So it's funny. It's like from the two spectrums of doing videos and being live, there's always something in everyone's kind of frame of mind that it doesn't matter. There's always something that can hinder you that we have to work through.
Absolutely. And so putting content that you would find helpful to other people. I mean, for instance, in leadership or digital leadership, I talk about things like what drives you to do what you do. Right. Like what influences you to get out of bed every morning. Yep. Why do you get out of bed? You mean we could just stay in bed all day and do nothing, right? Right. But we choose to get out of bed, or something influences to maybe if you have kids or if you have pets, maybe they need feeding, they need taking after, but that's responsibility as well, right? Yeah. Yeah. And they are great structures to actually put in place to help keep you being accountable in showing up for yourself. That's good. Yeah, just being able to show up. I think that's huge because and that's the thing. I think people, and I was there myself included, like we wanted to show up, but we wanted to show up perfectly, even though we know nothing's perfect. We're not perfect, but like that's the kind of the thought process. Instead of just show up, just do it. Just get the content out there as best you can, and that's going to do more than not doing it. Obviously. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I have a lot of perfectionism as well, but I'm more of an 8. Okay. So I'm more of like a challenger, like the boss type that wants to get things done, and then nice. The angry kid, the angry child. I gotcha. That's my personality type. So, but my wing is a huge 9. Okay. So there's the whole thing about I also don't want to get into conflicts, but I'm also really good at resolving conflicts. That's where the big part of my digital leadership comes into. It's conflict resolution. So it's having those tough conversations, or not even needing to have those conversations at all. Yeah. Because I've been able to communicate more effectively prior to all that, or nurture the relationships that it doesn't even need to come to the conflict stage.
Gotcha. That's crazy how that works. It's almost like, and I heard it again recently, but I love this quote, is the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek. And it's the same thing. Like, you're super good at resolving conflict, but like, you don't like doing it. So there's a conflict, but you don't go and do your strengths there. Who knows what could happen? But if you did, and you went through that fear to do that, like, really great things can happen. And so I love going back to that quote because it's so true.
It's building on the relationships. I mean, you know, my intention for everyone is love. Love and peace. That's my intention. Everyone I meet, I'll be kind to them because I don't know what they're going through, what they're going through right now, or what they have been through in their whole life.
Yeah.
But what I can do in the moment is be kind, be nice, smile, and be as helpful as I can.
Yeah.
You know,
empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a huge empathy and compassion for people. And I suppose that's why my leadership style comes into, but like, again, is knowing your strengths, knowing what you're working on.
Yeah.
And because I've been that kind of person my whole life.
Yeah.
And it shows in the communities that I build, in the teams that I work in, the people I meet, the people I have in my circle, and people I happen to connect with, like yourselves. I attract, you know, you attract what you are, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. And that goes back just to that positioning, like, and like how we show up, and it's almost like the actions we do that no one can see has the most weight. Like, what we do when no one's seeing the polished social media posts and videos and things like that, like what our actions are behind closed doors, that's what really kind of builds, I think, that positioning for leadership and that authority.
But it's even connecting with like-minded individuals like yourselves. Like, you know, for us to work together on a podcast, we had to connect and reach out to each other. Yeah. We had to pitch each other in a way, right? We had to go, am I a good fit on your show? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But at least have that conversation.
Yep. And because you'll never know.
That's the behind-the-scenes stuff that people don't see, right? But they see the polished thing that comes out on social media, your live interviews, the fancy StreamYard stuff, the shows.
Yeah. And it's like, it goes back to people who are like, oh, they're successful, they got lucky, they just happened for them. It's like, no, you don't see what they did behind those doors, like the hours they put into it, all the work, what they had to go through, the negativity, because when you get to that level, you are going to get so much negativity from people. And if you can't be able to like let that just bounce off and everything, like, so it's so much more than people see and realize. And it just makes me chuckle because I know what it takes to get to the level that like people like Tony Robbins or people like that are in. And so it's crazy to think of it. People think it's just luck. They just got lucky. Overnight success.
Yeah. We love the whole overnight success, but what goes behind the scenes is the hard work we put behind the scenes that no one sees, right?
Yeah.
But that's part of leadership, is being okay with that.
Right.
And being okay with, we got to get our hands dirty. We get in the role. We wouldn't delegate what we wouldn't do ourselves. Or we wouldn't like support someone else with something we haven't gone through ourselves. Right. We wouldn't help others overcome things that we haven't done ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the way the experience comes in, and even like as you're building something, a lot of people, I mean, it started out by yourself, like nobody. So you're doing everything, but you're learning. At least you have some experience doing it all. No, you might not be the best at it. I'm not the best podcaster. Obviously, I'm no Joe Rogan, and things like that. But I mean, so you have the experience in different areas that then you can delegate or you can teach, because like I like to tell the ones I help, like, you really just need to be 10% ahead of the people you're helping, because then you've been through this stage and you're going to help them get to that level. And as you do, you're going to continue to grow. And that's all it is. So I think, and that kind of goes back to like positioning as authority. And so how, besides knowing what you stand for and the content you put out, like what you're trying to help with, are there other ways that we can position ourselves, or the listeners can position themselves that are just starting out as an authority? How does that happen?
Well, the whole digital footprint is important, like you mentioned previously, right?
Yeah.
So having your own website, having your own social media channels, but also, like I mentioned, the content where you put out is really important,
Right.
because everything sticks nowadays. So you got to know what you stand for. So for me, I talk about a lot of things about like anti-racism, anti-bullying.
Yeah.
Because this is part of my leadership style, and
Right.
those are things that I've experienced as a child, and it's not very nice. So it's part of my way of using my platform to still raise the voice where needed.
Absolutely.
Similar to people who are the greatest of greats, like Lewis Hamilton. You know, he's using F1 as his platform to voice out issues that's still going on about racism and diversity, and you know, all the big issues, right? And I'd love to have a platform like him to do what he did, because it's so good.
Yeah.
But you know, we all have our own little worlds that we could work towards too and make a difference somewhere else. So
exactly, that's the huge part right there. That's the thing, because people are like, well, I'm not on their level, I don't have their stage, but you have a stage, and so you can make it different. And it goes back to when we talked about just everyone has influence. And so like, even if you're a factory worker and you're going in there, like that's still a stage. Like when I was in the 9 to 5, like going in, that was my stage. I was still going to try to help people see their potential and see their worth and go after their dreams, even in that setting. And so it doesn't matter. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we all have a stage every day.
Absolutely. And that's why I chose to work with charities as board trustee as well. I work with 2 charities. One's about alcohol addiction and rough sleepers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's a charity that supports those type of guys, people.
Yeah.
That's in those situations. And because the story was, when I was in London, I went to a Christmas charity where they did Christmas hampers. And one side of part of the team decided to pack like gift packs where they give to rough sleepers, like new socks, toothbrushes, bottle of waters, and snacks, and kind of just a small gift bag, like a help bag, basically.
Gotcha. And these are people, you're meaning people who are like out on the street kind of sleeping?
Yes. So these are guys
street sleepers,
rough sleepers on the streets.
Okay.
In London, we handed out care packages to them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
But not just handing out those care packages, we sat down with them.
That's awesome.
So we sat down with them. We were in like nice clothes and look pretty. And you have a lot of people walking past, right? They just give you funny looks. It's like, why are you sitting down with those type of rough sleepers? And we sat down. We shared their story. We got to know who they are, how they ended up there, what happened. If there's any way we could get them, give them help, or they already have help.
Yeah.
And it's just that chapter or that section of my life just changed the way I wanted to give back to the world.
For sure.
And so now I became a board trustee as part of the organization to help with more of the strategic level stuff, instead of, due to time commitment, I couldn't really do much of the frontline stuff, but I do try and get involved when I can. But at least I'm part of a charity that's doing what they can back for the community.
Absolutely. And that's behind the door stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Like, because there's so many people out there, they're like, oh, they're just rich, like they don't do, but like all the stuff that these people are doing, like you don't know all that they're helping. And I would I try to think like, man, those guys are probably helping out so many people. Like they probably are doing so much good, but I love that. So my hat's off to you for doing that. It's always good to be a part of things like that. Like for me, I am on a board for a not-for-profit for marriages. And then I help with a dog rescue, because animals are a big part of my life. And so we help foster and find homes and rescue and stuff like that for them. So
I love that.
Yeah,
it's foster, but I don't think I'd be able to let go of them afterwards.
It's hard. we've had around 50 so far.
Oh wow!
In the last year or two. So
amazing.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't be able to let go.
Yeah, we have failed 3 times, but but it's been
3 out of 50 is not bad, I suppose.
No, that's a good percentage. But
so the other charity is about kids with
Awesome.
learning difficulties.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we help that charity helps them learn through play activities.
Oh, neat.
So
That's awesome.
play activities, outside, indoors activities, craft, and different kind of ways to learn through play.
That's really neat. That's awesome.
So that's the second charity I'm a board trustee of. But that one I kind of do more hands-on stuff.
Cool.
Because of the level of staff at the moment and the challenges they're going through.
Yeah.
They're not as big as the other charity.
Okay.
So this one requires a bit more time commitment, but I'm okay with that because
yeah,
for me, it's about helping the next generation of kids, next generation of leaders, right?
Yep.
Again, that aligns with what I stand for, what I show up for, and it inspires me because the team is what makes it great. The team is they show up every day. They're so committed. They're always high energy.
That's awesome.
They always have fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the most important part of my life is if you're not having fun, then you're not doing it right.
Yep,
and
I agree.
The same thing with the corporate side was because I wasn't having fun. I wasn't the restraints of not being able to be creative and the environment just didn't nurture growth.
Yeah, you got to fit where you're aligned with.
So it didn't align with what I stood for, which was growth.
Yeah.
And if I'm not growing, I'm dying.
Yeah.
So therefore, it was just like, it felt horrible. It was a nice company and the team was great, but it's just the culture and the way it's been structured isn't ideal for those who want to accelerate in growing.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's just that environment. I mean, it could be different for other corporations, other organizations. I'm not saying every organization or corporate, right? It's just that one didn't fit me.
Yep.
And that was the wake up call for me.
Yep. And it's sometimes, that just happened. And it's nothing against anyone except it's just growth. Like during growth, you're going to be in different areas. Like you're going to be brought to a level for something different. Like it does. So that just, you're outgrowing where you were and you're moving on to something greater now. And so I really like that thought of that. Like as we grow, like we outgrow clothes, toys, like the same movies don't interest us. Like we're maturing almost in our leadership journey and fitting in different places. So I know a lot of people that I talk with, like, and this goes back to the positioning of authority, is they find themselves growing, but they feel like an imposter, the imposter syndrome. So with that and their content. So that's why they're trying to do is position themselves through their content. What do you suggest people do when they might have that imposter syndrome, but they still have that knowledge, that experience, that education to share, how to break through and still kind of position themselves?
Imposter syndrome is a big thing.
Yeah.
It's real. It's there. But be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't focus on it though.
Right.
Focus on the greater good. Focus on, again, why do you show up? Who are you showing up for? What do you stand for? Focus on that instead of focusing on the negatives. The whole thing about the whole short-term focus and focus on what matters.
Yes.
Does it matter if you're trying your best? You're doing your best. You're trying your best with what you have, what you can. If you don't know the answers or someone disagrees with it, okay, cool. That's it. Like if they disagree, they disagree with it. I mean, we don't have to have the same taste in flavors.
Right.
Someone could like vanilla ice cream. Someone could like chocolate ice cream. I still respect the choice, but I know what I would prefer, but you know, different, right? But
for sure,
it doesn't matter. It's just having the respect of people's opinion. People's, they may have a different level of perspective or different education, or they might see something a different insight. See it as a learning curve. If they go, that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't look right. Okay, could you explain yourself why it doesn't? Right? I'm happy to learn more about it because, again, we're still discovering, we're still learning. We don't have all the answers,
right?
But we've got what we learned, and what it might not be right. Our perspective might not be right. Our knowledge might be different because we might learn from different mentors.
Yep.
They have different methods. They have a different methodology, different framework, or different opinion. But what works for you?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah. Because we all have different thoughts, ideas, perspectives, and that's the beauty of it. Like, because we're different, and like in our differences, we can come together and be stronger because we do bring those differences. And Jono, you might bring something, and I'm like, oh snap, okay, I never thought of that. Like, that's brilliant. Or yeah, like I don't agree with it, but man, okay, but you've got me thinking about this now, which helps me. Like, and that's how it can be, and that's how it should be. Instead of just like, oh, you're wrong. Sorry, it's only this way. So
the closed mindset of not wanting to know that more answers is what stops you from growing, stops you from building relationships. Even you know, you could go, that doesn't sound right, or something's you could disagree with people, right. But have a more, again, it's down to communication, isn't it? Be more clear.
Yes.
Instead of be more clear and your intention of the way you portray. It's so easy behind social media because it's all about text.
Right.
There's no tonality. There's no sarcasm. There's nothing. It's just straight text, right?
Yeah.
Like if your partner or something just texts you and goes, "Where are you?" If you looked at the text and it just said, "Where are you?"
Yeah. Boy, what did I do?
It could look like, what did I do, or what's the matter, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or it could just be the tonality if they were next to you, but I was like, "Oh, where are you?"
Yep. Exactly.
Whereabouts are you in the store? Instead of just reading the text, be like, "Oh,
yeah,
what did I do wrong?" Kind of thing. And that's what social media can do. So knowing the damages of how tonality and text could be so miscommunication and misinterpretation a lot.
Yes.
Because there's things like, oh, that looks like a personal attack.
Yeah. And then that gets me, and then when you're online, you open up the whole world. And so you have different cultures now, and I could say something and it is completely harmless, but in their culture, it comes off wrong, or it sounds wrong, or it's taken wrong. And I'm like, oh man. And so that's a big one.
Even sports players, right? They have their social media platforms from different cultures.
Yeah.
Going to different countries, they do a tweet or a post. They write something, in their culture, it's completely normal. Yeah. But when it's reflected or translated back into the Western terms, it's something that's racist or hateful or whatever, right? And they may not even know about it. Yeah. Because the education, the belief, the culture is all different.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to really kind of, I think, goes back just to where you started. It was, what do you stand for? Because I think those values are going to be, if you can figure that out, and then you can figure out how to approach it through the content, through the text, through the video, hopefully people are doing out there, and overcoming those fears of it, to get that authority position kind of built within their market, within their niche. And I think that these are all super important, valuable pieces as someone's growing their online coaching business or podcast business or whatever it is. So with that, I would love a couple things. We usually at the end of the episode, I ask my guests. So the fifth trait of pencil leadership is that a pencil is created with a purpose, and that's to leave a mark on the surfaces it writes on. So the same thing for you. After everything is said and done for you, Jono, on Earth here, what do you hope the mark you left is?
To create influential leaders of the next generation, who's going to inspire the young generation, the young people, in the next generations to come.
Awesome. I love that.
And that's, I always say, if I can help one person change their lives in a stage, in a room, in anyone consuming the audio, the content, the podcast, and they take it away and find something useful and implement in their lives that's changed and have a positive effect in their lives, then that my job is done.
Yeah.
However, saying that, I did have a friend who challenged me and say, if you're swinging your message, you might as well hit everyone and get everyone to change their lives. I mean, I love the fact that if I can get everyone to change their lives for the better, or to grow, to change, to inspire the next generation, or influence and inspire or impact the next generation of people, or that's great.
Yeah.
But I know most people won't. But I
Yeah.
will do what I can in the time I have, in the space and platform that I have, to do the best I can and help others.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think it's a noble undertaking. So I applaud you and continue to follow and support you with that. Before we do close, where can people find out more about what you do, what you offer, and how to stay connected?
Yep. So if you want to go to my website, it's jonopoon.com, which
Perfect.
you've already got. So
Perfect. Yeah, there we go.
So that if anyone wants to speak to me, connect with me, just drop me a message. I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, Jono, again, thank you so much for being on the show today and just sharing about building this digital leadership.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Chris, for having me on.
No problem. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to tag somebody that might find use from listening to it. Share it, subscribe to the show. It really helps us get these messages out to more people. We appreciate every one of you who listens and shares. So until next time, let's go out.